When we think about starting a creative project, it often induces in us any number of fears that either prevent us from starting or make us feel uncomfortable when we do start. Things like, I'm not good enough to pull it off, people will laugh at me, it won't be perfect, I'm going to fail. So how do we get around this? How can we turn those fears into something positive? That's what I want to talk about today. Hi, my name's Paul from Studio Centrale, and this is the Humble Creative Podcast. So how can we avoid these fears? One successful way that I've done this is to view my creativity just as an experiment. And what I found is that by thinking of my creativity in that way, rather than thinking about projects and outcomes and desired results, I engage my curiosity immediately. And the fears fall away, or they become part of that curiosity. And that gives me the ability to move forward. How does it work? When we think about a project, for example, if I were to think, oh, I want to do a project where I make a short film every month with, a cast and a crew and a script and post it on YouTube, I can tell you the fears are going off in my head right now, even as I think about doing that. I'm not going to be able to pull it off. I'm sure that's true. I'm going to fail. If I make films, they're going to suck. People will laugh at me. I don't even know how to work with a cast or a crew. I don't even know how to find them. I can guarantee you right now, there is no way I'm starting this project. But what if I think about it as an experiment? Experiments pose questions that we hope to find answers to by doing the experiment. So as an experiment, I might think of this as, can I make a short film every month? Is that even possible? And my curiosity gets engaged. I start thinking about the relevant questions to ask about this. How can I start? What if something doesn't work? What would I do then? What could I try instead if something doesn't work? What do I need to learn in order to do this? For example, what would I need to learn about finding a cast, finding a crew? How would I know how to work with them? And when do I need to learn that? Is another question of curiosity that this reframing of the concept brings to mind right away. This works because an experiment by definition is an expression of curiosity. We don't know and we can't predict the outcome. That's why we do the experiment. In order to find out what the answer to our curiosity is regarding, in this case, my very hypothetical idea of making a short film every month with a cast and a crew. A project, on the other hand, can lead to a definite sense of failure if it doesn't meet our expectations at the end of doing the project. But by definition as well, an experiment can never fail because it's simply there to provide an answer to a question. It's not there to provide any specific result. In fact, if you knew it would provide that result, you wouldn't need to do the experiment. What experiments do generate, and I'm a scientist by training, is data. And we can think of that as simply information. I think in terms of more general creativity, experiments provide useful information regardless of whether the outcome of the experiment is what we had hoped it would be or not. And that data or information we can review, we can think about what it's telling us, and that leads us to a way to try again. And this really speaks to the concept of work comes from work. That was a philosophy that was introduced by Richard Serra, an American sculptor. He talked about this when he was giving a commencement address. He said that work comes from work. And we can see how that's true. So if we consider a single piece of work to be a single experiment, you do the work, you get a result of some kind, you get data, information that you can review and act upon and find a way to make the next work or do the next experiment. So to sum this up succinctly, fear works against creativity. Curiosity is the engine of creativity. So by approaching our creativity as just being a grand experiment consisting of many smaller experiments, we are engaging the engine of creativity, and that's curiosity. How do we start? How do you start to do this? Well, the first thing is to simply ask a question. My favorite question is, what if? What if I did this? What if I did that? What if I took watercolors, but I just let them run all over the paper in a random fashion, and what would I get from that, and what might I do with what I got from that? The question doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be something like, can I write a novel in 90 days? It can be small and manageable. Can I write a 2-paragraph blog post for my website? Having asked the question, the next step is to start an experiment. And as I mentioned just now, the experiment need not be a huge thing. It can be something quite small and manageable. The important thing is to let your curiosity be free and just go ahead and do the experiment. Remember, you don't have to worry about, am I good enough, or will people laugh about this? No one's going to see this experiment unless you decide that what resulted from it is something that you want to share. An experiment, by definition, doesn't have a goal. It's there simply to answer a question and give you some useful information so you can ask the next question. So it's easier and feels more comfortable, and your curiosity can be free to drive your creativity. Having done the experiment, what's the next step? That's to review the outcome, the information you got from doing the experiment or the data. What did you learn from doing the experiment? Give it some thought, think about it, and then ask, what experiment should you do next based on what you just learned from this experiment? That takes you a step closer to a larger goal, if you have a larger goal. What's the fourth step in the process? It's to do the next experiment. This is the way we learn and grow as creatives. This is the way that we push our creativity further. I encourage you to try this. If this sounds like something that you would be at least willing to try, please go ahead and try it. And if you have time, I'd love to hear down in the comments how this is working for you. Or if this is a process that you're already using, perhaps you could share your experiences so we could all learn from them. I would really appreciate that. As always, you are a creative person. I always tell you that because it's true. Everyone on this planet is, whether they believe it or not, a creative person. It's ingrained in us. It's our nature. We are curious as a species, and curiosity is the engine of creativity. Thanks very much for watching. I appreciate you doing so, and I hope you'll watch again next time.